The fire was gone. Its last breath vanished beneath a storm so fierce it erased the world. No light, no warmth, only the scream of the wind and the heartbeat of the earth below. Most would have perished in that silence, but the tribes of the plains did not. They knew warmth could outlive the flame. It could hide in stone and hide in the breath of those who remembered. When the blizzard devoured everything, they built heat from nothing from the ground beneath their feet, and the wisdom passed through generations. How they did it defied reason, and it began the moment the fire went out. So when the storm devoured the fire, they turned to the oldest secrets of warmth, the 7 ways their ancestors had faced the impossible. When the fire could no longer stand against the wind, the Lakota and Cheyenne turned to the earth itself. They knew warmth could be buried, that heat, once born, did not die quickly. Before the storm arrived, they gathered stones from the riverbed, heavy, porous, alive with memory. Each one was heated deep in the fire's heart until it glowed like the sunset of a dying summer. Then, with quiet hands, they carried those stones into the ground beneath sleeping hides, beneath the floor where children would dream. Through the long night, the stones exhaled the breath of the day. Slowly, patiently, the earth became a silent hearth, holding heat as it held life. There was no flame, no smoke, no sound, only warmth that moved like a secret through the soil. Even as the blizzard roared above the ground, whispered below, "I will keep you through the night." This was more than survival. It was a dialogue between human and earth, between memory and endurance. The people understood fire was not just an element, it was a relationship. Once shared with the ground, it became something eternal. When dawn returned, the Tipis stood half buried in snow, still silent, alive. The stones had cooled, but their warmth remained in the bones of those who slept above them. To the Lakota and Cheyenne, this was not a trick of physics. It was faith, a covenant with the earth that had never broken its promise. When the nights grew longer than memory, the Mandan and Hidatsa prepared the ground beneath them, for the earth could steal heat as easily as it gave life. They wove willow mats tight as shields, then laid them over beds of dry grass gathered before the frost. Each stalk was hollow, filled with tiny chambers of air, invisible walls between life and freezing. They knew the secret that modern minds forget warmth arises from stillness, not from struggle. Between grass and skin, the trapped air became an ally, holding the body's breath close. No fire, no light, only layers of silence that refused to let the cold claim them. When the storm pressed against their lodges, the people did not tremble. The ground, once the enemy, had become their protector. Beneath the hides and the mats, warmth spread like the memory of summer, slow, patient, and alive. It was more than bedding. It was an act of engineering shaped by wisdom, a lesson passed through hands older than the plains themselves. Even in darkness, they built warmth from what others walked upon and forgot. When morning came, frost glittered on the roofs above, but below, the air still breathed soft against sleeping skin. A single layer of grass, the thin line between life and ice. To most, snow means death, the final breath of warmth before silence takes hold. But to the Cree and the subarctic tribes, snow was a paradox. It was both the storm and the shield. They understood what the untrained never did. Snow is air, not ice. When packed right, it traps warmth, each crystal holding still pockets that resist the wind. So when the blizzards came, they did not clear the drifts. They let them grow. They invited the storm to build its own walls. Snow piled thick around their lodges, sometimes burying them halfway. From the outside, it looked like surrender, but inside the air was calm, warmer than the world above. The blizzard could scream all night, yet inside the stillness held steady at the edge of comfort. It was a lesson born from humility. The enemy can become your ally if you know how to listen. By yielding to the storm, they defeated it. By trusting the snow, they outlasted it. And when dawn came, when the horizon glowed blue and the winds fell silent, the lodges emerged like breathing hills, steaming softly under the first sun. The Cree never called it resistance. They called it harmony, because snow, when accepted, becomes not a threat, but the blanket of the earth itself. When the winds grew merciless and the fire dimmed to its final breath, the Lakota and Mandan turned to the oldest source of heat, left each other. Inside, the teepee families gathered close beneath a single buffalo hide, thick as memory, heavy as love. Children, elders, hunters, all pressed together, heart to heart, breath to breath. In that shared silence, warmth rose not from flame, but from life itself. The buffalo hide trapped it the quiet storm of human heat. Every exhale became another spark, invisible but real, weaving warmth into the cold night. It was not just sleeping, it was survival through unity. Outside, the blizzard roared like a wild animal clawing at the walls. Inside, there was only stillness, the steady rhythm of shared breathing, like one slow heartbeat beneath fur and hide. The fire may have died, but the tribe's warmth did not. It pulsed through their closeness, through the unspoken vow that no one would face the cold alone. To the Lakota and Mandan, this was not simply comfort, it was ceremony. The act of lying together was an offering to life, a prayer whispered in body heat. By morning, frost painted the teepee white, but beneath it, the air still glowed faintly warm, a quiet miracle, born not from wood or flame, but from connection. They called it the warmth of the people, the last fire that never went out. Before the storm ever came, the Plains tribes had already prepared their armor, not of metal, but of hide smoke and patience. They took the buffalo's gift and carried it through fire. For days, the hides were hung above slow, smoldering embers, bathed in a haze of wood and oil. The smoke sank deep into every pore of the leather, sealing it, blessing it, teaching it to remember warmth. When the blizzards came, those hides did what even flame could not. They repelled the wet, held the heat, and carried the scent of smoke, the memory of fire, long after its light was gone. Each robe became a hearth one could wear, every fold a wall between the body and the storm. The people wrapped themselves in them like history itself, the smoke that once rose to the sky, now wrapped around their shoulders. Even when the fire died, its spirit lingered, moving quietly through the hides that had once known its touch. In those long nights, the air outside froze solid, but the scent of the smoke within whispered of survival. They wore not just protection, but remembrance, the living bond between flame and flesh. To the Plains tribes, tanning was not a craft, it was a ceremony, a promise that the warmth of the hunt, the fire, and the earth would not be lost to the cold. Because in every thread of smoke-tanned hide lived a simple truth: the fire still breathed, even when the world went silent. In the Arctic, survival was measured not by firelight, but by airflow. The Inuit and Aleut learned to shape the wind itself to make cold air their servant instead of their enemy. Their winter shelters began beneath the earth, carved into frozen soil and bone-white snow. From the outside, they seemed small and still half buried in silence, but inside, they were miracles of design, warm, calm, alive. Each home had a tunnel descending below the floor before rising again into the living space. The idea was simple, yet brilliant. Cold air, being heavier, would sink into the tunnel and stay there. Warm air, lighter and sacred, would rise and remain within the heart of the home. No door, no heat loss, no wasted breath, just the wisdom of air, quiet and unseen. They built with intuition older than science, guided by observation, patience, and the breath of the earth itself. Even in -40, families gathered inside without smoke, without wind, surrounded by a silence that hummed with life. Outside, the polar night stretched endless. Inside, there was the rhythm of breathing, the soft glow of seal oil lamps, and the faint sound of wind passing harmlessly above. It was more than architecture. It was a conversation between human and element, warmth and frost life, and the wisdom of air. They did not conquer the Arctic. They understood it, and the Arctic in turn let them live. When the wind stripped warmth from the air, and even fire bowed before the frost, the Ojibwe and Cree turned to the oldest protection they knew: the body itself. Without fire, skin freezes fast. So they learned to armor it, not with cloth, but with life. They rendered fat from bear moose or goose, heating it slowly until it turned clear and heavy with oil. Then, with deliberate care, they spread it over exposed skin, the face, the hands, the neck. It sealed the pores, trapped body heat, and blocked the bite of wind. The grease became a living barrier, soft, warm, and faintly shining in the dim winter light. It was nature's answer to frostbite, crafted long before the word existed. But it was more than technique. It was understanding a covenant between human and animal. To take from the bear was not greed, it was trust. The spirit of the bear, powerful and enduring, lived on in the oil that kept people warm. They carried its strength on their skin. On the coldest nights when the fire died and breath turned to crystal, their skin still burned faintly with life. Every heartbeat sent warmth against the grease, and every heartbeat whispered, "We are still here." They wore the wisdom of survival, not as armor, but as memory. And in the silence of the frozen north, the warmth did not come from flame, but from flesh, spirit, and gratitude. Because when the world froze over, the body itself became the fire. They did not conquer the cold. They listened to it. Every gust of wind, every shiver of snow carried a message, a lesson that warmth is not always born of flame. The earth taught them patience. The buffalo taught them endurance. And the breath between them, human and land, became the quiet rhythm of survival. They learned that warmth could live in many forms, in the stones that held the sun, in the hides that remembered the fire, in the hands that reached for one another when the storm rose. When the fire died, they did not mourn it, they became it. Each heartbeat, each shared breath, each whisper of life within the teepee kept the darkness from winning. In the silence of winter, they found not emptiness, but understanding. The cold was not an enemy, it was a teacher shaping their wisdom the way frost shapes glass. And as centuries passed, that knowledge remained carried not in books or words, but in instinct, in reverence, in the memory of how to live with the earth, not against it. Because warmth they knew as a promise, a cycle between fire and flesh, between wind and will. It was never just heat, it was connection. They didn't survive the winter by defying nature. They survived by remembering they were part of it. When the fires went out, they remembered. That warmth begins from within. Long after the flames turned to ash, the earth still held its breath. The hides still carried the scent of smoke, and the people still carried the lesson that survival is not defiance, but connection. They had lived through the storm not by conquering it, but by becoming part of its rhythm. The snow, the wind, the silence, all of it spoke the same truth, that the fire never truly dies, it only changes form. It moves from the pit to the stone to the skin, from the skin into the heart. And there, it burns forever.